All right, so let's start here, and that is, of course, the very latest happening in the city of Johannesburg. We know that there is a lot of turmoil. On Friday, we saw the DA mayor, Mpho Phalatse, ousted in a motion of no confidence. She was replaced by the ANC's Dada Morero. Well, let's get the very latest, because it ain't over yet, that is for sure. There are two other metros in Gauteng that are run under similar DA-led coalitions. I'm joined by our reporter, Pule Letshwiti-Jones. Pule, thank you so much for joining us. It has been really a very busy week also here in Johannesburg. I know that you've spoken to the DA's Gauteng leader, Solly Mzimanga, and you've asked him about the court challenge that the DA is laying on. In fact, I think they have already laid charges. Yeah. And this is all to do with the way Colleen Makobela, as Speaker, presided over Friday's no-confidence motion. Tell us what exactly their complaint is.
Definitely. They're against the whole process of the program committee meeting that took place, which is the one which actually oversees the items that will be presented in council, which includes tabling reports that speak to service delivery and, of course, amongst others, the motions which were expected to be passed. However, we do know that that meeting did not curate because Action SA members left the meeting, and therefore it not reaching quorum means that the meeting could not actually continue, and it was unlawful to continue with the meeting. So the DA is of the view that it has to challenge, the principle of what happened in that meeting, and they're saying that it cannot be that a motion be passed in council if in the first place the program committee meeting did not even convene or reach quorum. And they're also saying that the timing of the motion in principle is supposed to be 72 hours, and it was just before that the mayor was alerted of the motion that will be passed against her. So those are just some of the arguments they're filing in their founding affidavit to say they're challenging how the meeting was convened, and they believe that it's a big problem for the city as well. The papers have been filed already, and they're saying they're not taking any blame for the collapse of the coalition government. They believe that it did everything to save the coalition government, which of course includes Action SA, and that they cannot take the blame for what has happened. Action SA believes that the DA must take the blame. They believe that they will no longer be working with the DA in Johannesburg, and they also want to have a meeting on Wednesday, the Senate meeting of Action SA's top leadership, to find a way forward as to whether they continue working with the DA or not. But just perhaps listen to what Solly Mzimanga had to say earlier on.
A coup that is busy unfolding in front of our eyes. We have said that we are people that believe in the principles of democracy, and we will stick to that, but also believing in the rule of law, that if we are to be voted out legally, we will respect that, and we will then go back to opposition benches. But what we cannot allow is a situation where there's a new precedence that is being set, and that is a legal meeting that is convened to elect people illegally, and then we sit back and saying this is the way to go. Now, we've mentioned a number of things, and which is what we're going to be presenting in court as well. One of those things that we presented was that there was supposed to be a what do we call a planning committee meeting, which was supposed to be taking place. And that planning committee meeting didn't correct. So again, there you're starting off on the wrong foot. The second issue is that you're supposed to then have a 72-hour notice if you want to have an urgent meeting. Now, that also didn't happen. You'd remember that the notice for a meeting was only sent out on Thursday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, for a meeting to take place the following day at 10 o'clock. Now, that doesn't give you 72 hours. But these are some of the things that we are now taking to court.
All right, so there is that court action underway, but the bigger question, of course, is the other two metros in Gauteng, where there's a similar sort of arrangement. Action SA is quite concerned. It's interesting they still want to talk, because they've sort of said, we want a bit of space in the DA, but they haven't actually broken up with them as yet. Talk to me about what Action SA is saying about keeping the DA-led coalitions together in other metros.
So definitely, what we understand here is that Action SA believes there's a possibility of a coalition between ANC and the EFF in Ekurhuleni. They're quite concerned about that. But one of the reasons why we know and now understand why Action SA did not support the DA in principle is because of the article that was released by the DA provincial leader, Solly Mzimanga, on the opinion piece on Daily Maverick. However, Solly says that, and he alleges that they had already known the outcome before council, that the action that the PA would not be voting with the DA in terms of fielding their mayoral candidate. Sally, we understand of a meeting that took place on Sunday between ANC, EFF, and PA leaders in terms of how they would share the power and positions as well. And therefore, that's one of the reasons why the DA went on to release the opinion piece on Daily Maverick, because they already knew the outcomes. They already knew that the PA was already supporting and voting the ANC, which saw the mayor coming in, Dada Morero, the ANC regional chairperson. So the dynamics are quite interesting. Action SA has that meeting on Wednesday, which will determine what kind of proposal they come with if they have to go back to a drawing board and talk to the DA. They're quite adamant that they've served their time in office for the past 10 months, but now it's about positions, it's about power, and from here onwards, they have to make a decision whether they continue working with the DA or look at an alternative of working with another party, which I believe will be something that will be discussed at the meeting at 9 p.m. when Action SA's top leadership paves the way forward. But we can just listen to what Bongani Baloyi had to say.
Ekurhuleni is eminent. It's a minority government in Ekurhuleni. We understand that the EFF and ANC have an agreement in place, and in the foreseeable future, Ekurhuleni is going to go. We did warn this early this year that Ekurhuleni is in a precarious situation. Our warnings were not heeded too, because we felt it's important to start speaking to other parties to strengthen Ekurhuleni and ensure that we can govern for a longer period of time. So if the DA really think that one position was enough for them to lose and destabilize government, it has really assisted us as Action SA to open our eyes, because now there's some questions we need to answer as Action SA. And that part our national chair is going to speak to. Because the situation we have found ourselves in, the instability in these coalitions, has really brought some serious consideration to our doorstep sooner than what we would have expected.
So it strikes me that while the DA-led coalition is in disarray, this is the time for the ANC to strike.
Yeah.
I mean, while the Action SA is mulling its relationship and who gets what, how quickly might we see action in the next few days even in Ekurhuleni, possibly even Tshwane as well?
So I think firstly, let's start first the court case. I think even if the decisions were to be reversed, even if the council resolutions were to be reversed, DA is likely to win on a basis of technicality, because
it's the Joburg, the way
the Joburg, yes, because that meeting did not curate, and you can't have a meeting that does not reach quorum and make decisions. But when you look at the numbers, they still don't have the numbers, and therefore they are happy to be on the opposition bench. But when you listen to Bongani Baloyi, he's saying that they might have to take now close consideration in terms of thinking about what the future holds for them. Possibly seeing them partnering with the ANC, we don't know. Herman Mashaba has been quite firm to say he doesn't want to work with the ANC. However, in politics, Sally, we know how things may change at the 11th hour. So that's very interesting to see what their meeting will entail on Wednesday at 9 p.m. when they have the Senate meeting as well of Action SA. But as the week unfolds, we will then see as to what stance Action SA will be taking. We do understand that the DA has also been in a PEC meeting this morning. They probably know what they're going to be taking as well. But they will be going to talks again with Action SA to see how can they forge a relationship forward, because in the interim, Ekurhuleni may be affected, and the city of Tshwane. Action SA says they want to hold Randall Williams accountable for the scandal that brought him under the spotlight recently in relation to the energy tender as well in the city. So it'll be quite interesting to see.
The unsolicited bid.
Yes.
Which he says never really went anywhere. It was just kind of a suggestion. But others saying he was trying to ram it down their throats.
Yeah, but Action SA believes there's a forensic report that must be released by end of October, which implicates the mayor. And it seems as though when you look at the pattern, they are trying to unseat the DA as well from these mayoral positions as well, which is quite interesting. But the next week or so, we will be able to see where Action SA lies in terms of whether they will be going back to the DA in other metros, or they will be taking just the decision whereby they will be working alone or with someone else.
Very quickly, when we heard the motion of no confidence, Colleen Makobele, they were reading out from the floor what they felt the mayor had done wrong. Service delivery was one of the issues. How much of this is motivated by pure need to take control of metros and to get to be back in the powerful seat? And how much of this do you think is motivated by real concern that the DA-led coalition was going astray and not leading the city right?
I think we should look at also track record. I mean, when you look at what the DA has done, they claim that they've fixed potholes in the city, that they've been fixing pipe waters, they've been doing quite a lot in terms of accelerating service delivery. But what's also concerning is the manner in which the process of removing the mayor was rushed. That was also quite concerning, because even on Friday when we were sitting in council, we did not hear anything. If you were to play the recording of that meeting, you will not hear anything. And just before, lunch, the mayor was already removed. Just minutes after that, there was a court order, which was, of course, dismissed by the High Court in relation to the DA challenging that whole process. So you can see how that whole process was rushed. The motion was only served before, just the day before council sat, and therefore there's just a lot of principles that were breached by the minority, of course, being COPE, ANC, and Co. So those are some of the things that are really in question right now. But as far as service delivery, as much as the DA says it has been, accelerating service delivery, there are still other concerns. We're seeing now with the Joburg water. We're seeing what's happening in Soweto as well with the, continuous unplanned blackouts in El Dorado Park. There's an issue of crime as well. So at the end of the day, residents are bearing the brunt of this political infighting, while service delivery isn't really prioritized.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on the latest. I have a feeling it's going to be another busy week in local government politics here in Gauteng. Thank you very much for wrapping it all up for us, Pule Letshwiti-Jones.